Gonna give it another minute, give a few more people time to come on in. Just gonna share this out real quickly. And then I'm gonna talk a little bit about the Philadelphia Eagles. Yep. Because the 2025-26 regular season is over. That could be both a good thing and a bad thing. So, yeah, I'll talk about it in a minute. Yes, I got Daniel Berry stopping by. Always showing support for these streams, stopping by, whether leaving comments on all of the live streams. So thank you, Daniel Berry, as always, for your continuous and consistent support. And in just a minute or so, we're going to actually start talking about the Eagles. I'm going to actually have some content for you guys in just a minute. All right, so yeah, you guys know it by now, Eagles fans. The 2025-26 regular season is over. The campaign to repeat as Super Bowl champs did not happen, but it's honestly not a surprise. We saw this coming, especially as Eagles fans that watching the games, talking about it. You know, we knew ultimately they weren't going to repeat. Like, we wanted to. As a fan, you still had that small glimmer of hope that this team would, but you knew it ultimately wasn't going to happen. And as far as the Niners game itself goes, let's start with that before we get into the recap of the season. So for the San Francisco 49ers game, it was just like, look, I kind of had as going into the game, I said this. It all depended on the Eagles' offense. That would be the X factor in the outcome for this game. And ultimately, it was. The game came down to the Philadelphia Eagles ultimately not being able to close the deal and get the job done on offense. Because we saw the same thing we saw all season long. The offense starts off decently. First half, get solid, scored some points. But then, come second half, the Eagles offense barely got anything going. And what happened when it was all said and done? You guessed it, the San Francisco 49ers came out on top as the victorious team. And you know what? Well deserved, too. Because, unlike us, the San Francisco 49ers know how to play through adversity. They played down two of their best defensive players all season long. And were just one loss shy of home field advantage. The Philadelphia Eagles were mostly healthy through the season, on paper with a better roster. On paper, a better quarterback. And ultimately, we went one and done. And if you really look at our season, I'll get to that part in a minute, we didn't have a lot of great wins. We didn't. And we were good enough to make the playoffs. We had the right talent, good enough to win 11 games. But at the end of the day, we had less structure than the 49ers. And that's ultimately the reason why they won this game. Even with losing George Kittle in the first quarter for the remainder of the playoffs, which that might be a bigger loss down the line, particularly going against Seattle. And if they do get past Seattle in the conference championship round against either the Bears or Rams, but that's another story for tomorrow on the 3-point blitz at noon. As of right now, though, let's talk about this game. What happened? First half, the Eagles managed to get 13 points, right? We were winning by a field goal at halftime. And then what happened in the second half? 2 field goals, 1 field goal in the third quarter, 1 field goal in the fourth. And then finally, it happened. The defense got burnt out. They got gassed in the fourth quarter, and ultimately the Niners came back and won. You had you had a touchdown pass early to start the quarter. Jennings got the touchdown pass, and then the Niners took a 1-point lead. Then Elliott got a field goal out of it, and then ultimately late in the game, Niners took advantage of that burnt-out Eagles defense and scored the go-ahead touchdown with a short pass to Christian McCaffrey, who I said was the main weapon on their offense, and he kind of was. He kind of was, and it's crazy because I said this throughout the season. What happens is the Eagles, their offense couldn't move and their defense got torched. Their defense spent so much time on the field that eventually they got burnt out, and then it caught up to them in the fourth quarter. That's exactly what happened last night. Because first half, the defense was phenomenal. They held the Niners to only 10 points. And they did a good job in the first half. I mean, between head coaches and coordinators, Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator, he's been the best on this team this season. The best by a mile. And then all of a sudden, third quarter, eventually, and here's what happened. We get a punt early. Defense gets an interception. So defense starts off the third quarter hot. And then what? A punt. After 4 plays, defense forces a 3 and out. We get a field goal to go 16-10 entering the fourth. And then it happens. Fourth quarter, all of a sudden, the defense starts getting burnt out. We give up a touchdown. Then we punt. But then we get an interception. We get a short field. And what did the Eagles do? Oh, yeah, they settle for a field goal. But then the Niners have a long drive, choose some time off the clock, and go up again. I said that. I said going into this game, it was going to all depend on whether the offense could be at least better than what they've typically been all season. Typically, they're like a 14 to at best 20-point team on average throughout the season. And I said if the Eagles could just be better than that, they could have a shot in winning this game. And considering the Niners scored 23 points, if that offense would have been better, I still believe we could have won this game. Especially if we were able to at least get something going beside 2 field goals in the second half. We could have got 1 touchdown even, and that's it. That could have made a huge difference because the Eagles could have had a touchdown, maybe on a long drive that could have kept their defense off the field, gave the defense time to catch its breath, and then ultimately they wouldn't have gotten torched in the fourth quarter by the Niners offense. So I still believe that Eagles offense would have been better. Ultimately, we could have won this game. It was right. And ultimately, the Eagles offense didn't do what they needed to do, and the Niners came away with the victory. So I stand by that belief that the Eagles offense was the X factor in this game, and not in a good way. And Star Wars stopped by and said lots of changes coming this offseason. I don't mind Nick being fired. He chose Kevin Patullo. And that's a great point. We'll get to that in a second. Because that actually ties in what I was going to say, too, is a lot of people are blaming Kevin Patullo for this, and he does deserve blame, don't get me wrong. He had no business being an offensive coordinator at all. What experience did he have that made him qualified to call plays? What experience did he have? And the only reason he got the job is because he's been Nick Sirianni's right-hand man since Sirianni started. He started as a lower-tier coach when Sirianni was hired as the head coach in 2021. And then finally, come the 2025 offseason, they were looking for somebody. So Sirianni goes, get his drinking buddy, Kevin Patullo, to be the offensive coordinator. So, yeah, Sirianni plays a role in this, too. He used his seniority as the head coach from the 2 Super Bowl appearances and the Super Bowl win to say, hey, you know what? Kevin Patullo should be the offensive coordinator. He plays a big role in it too. And let's look at the history too with Sirianni. When Sirianni, why can't Hurts throw to the middle of the field? And that's his big weak point too. Jalen Hurts, it's like, look, mostly his strength comes throwing to the left or the right or running with it. Those are his main strengths as a quarterback. RPO. He's never really been a guy that's be able to throw down the middle of the field. And that ties into another point too, like as to why Patullo and Sirianni were so horrible with this offense this season. You know Jalen Hurts is an RPO quarterback. He's been your starting quarterback since 2021 when Sirianni took over as the head coach. His best individual season came that 2022 season when it was RPOs through the offense. RPOs. Run pass option. And what do they do this year? They try to force Hurts to be a pocket passer like he's Dan Marino or Joe Montana when that's not who he is. And Maul commented, Star, heck no, bro. Not firing Snick after a down season. He does need to be held accountable, but fires a bit much. Go get Mike McDaniels. He's referring to Mike McDaniel as an offensive coordinator, which I don't even know about that one personally. I'm still kind of iffy about that because, I mean, yeah, they did all right in Miami offensively, but that's because you had Tua had Waddle and Hill going with him. And as far as Mike McDaniel as a head coach, I know it's all kind of off subject with your point, but I wouldn't hire him as a head coach anywhere. Now, fortunately, the Eagles don't really have to worry about a head coaching search. Now, with Sirianni goes, look, I'm not in favor of firing him, but I'm in favor of not letting him have say over the playbook. That's my big thing, because I've noticed when Sirianni has more influence in the play calling, it's usually terrible. The play calling is usually atrocious. And that was the case with Brian Johnson and with Kevin Patullo. It was mostly a lot of Sirianni influence behind the play calling. And that's why it was so bad. When Kellen Moore actually took over and the offense geared toward him last season, 2024, we made the run to the Super Bowl. See Shane Steichen the first go-around when we made the run to Super Bowl 57. Sirianni's better as a head coach when you just let somebody else call up the plays. And Kellen Moore, man, easily. We as Eagles fans would take him back. I think some of us were honestly hoping the Saints would have a terrible finish and that he'd get fired just to try to get him back. But obviously that ship has sailed. Kellen Moore did enough late season with the Saints to at least get a second season. I mean, yeah, any of us would take him back, but we know realistically it's not going to happen because the Saints are going to keep him around for another year. And as far as Mike McDaniel goes, I would take him as an offensive coordinator over Kevin Patullo any day of the week. Now, is Mike McDaniel the best offensive coordinator in the world? Okay, maybe not the best in the world, but I would take him over Patullo. But here's part of the problem. Realistically, you're probably going to have the Cleveland Browns and maybe another team looking to hire McDaniel, because I know the Browns are interviewing Mike McDaniel for the head coaching vacancy, which I'll talk about that maybe tomorrow on my live show, the 3-Point Blitz. But this one's mostly about the Eagles here, so I'm going to keep this one Eagles related. But because of that right there, it's possible McDaniel might not be available if he does take the Browns coaching job. So, even if that would be better, I don't think it's going to happen. Now, as far as Kevin Patullo goes, I don't know what they're going to do with him. I mean, they should fire him, definitely. And I'll get to Star Wars' comment in just a second about Patullo, AJ. I'll say this. Now, as far as firing Kevin Patullo, absolutely I agree. Fire him. Absolutely, because he has no business being an offensive coordinator. He held this offense back all season long, including the game last night. And A.J. Brown, I would love to keep A.J., but the way things are going, he's not. I feel like he just doesn't have. I want A.J. Brown to stay because I feel like he's a better receiver than Devontae, but at this point, I might have to consider doing it, even though I would hate to, because A.J. Brown as a fit, he hasn't really been the best fit with the Eagles. And I don't think he's happy with the direction where it's going. And to be fair, I think A.J. Brown maybe wants a bigger contract because in his mind, he's like, look, I got my Super Bowl. Now let me go get my money. And the way the Eagles' offense was being run didn't suit to his strengths to get those incentives. So AJ's probably going to maybe want to go somewhere else. I think AJ's like, look, I got my Super Bowl in Philly, so I want to get the money now. He wants to chase contract incentives, which he didn't really get. I mean, I don't get it. It's just apps. I mean, AJ Brown, it kind of is a shame because I want him to stay on the roster, but it's not going in that direction. I feel like A.J. Brown is a better receiver than Devontae Smith, but I do also feel like part of the problem was Kevin Patullo, too. The way he ran this offense, I don't know, how do you not get A.J. Brown incorporated? Like, seriously. So I do feel it's part Kevin Patullo's fault, too. Now, do I think A.J. could have handled it more professionally throughout the season? Yes. I do think, even though I understand A.J. Brown's frustrations, I do think at times he could have been a little more professional about the way he handled it. And that may be now put him in a spot where he might get traded or cut. Or he might try to seek a trade, but we'll probably see more about that in the days and weeks to come. But even though I want AJ to stay, I get where you're coming from, Star Wars. I could see it happening. But the one thing he did say I agree with completely, as long as fire Patullo, get a new kicker, definitely. Dude, Jake Elliott, dude, he's overstayed his welcome. Look, Jake Elliott helped us out a lot during that first Super Bowl run to Super Bowl 52, that 63-yarder against the Giants in his rookie season. He helped us out and made a kick against the Texans week 16 of the second season. And for a while, he was actually a pretty good kicker. But in recent years, he's been horrible. He's missed 7 field goals during the regular season. He missed an extra point yesterday, too. And it's like, you wonder why the Eagles went for it a lot. And you think about it, I'm like, now we know why he went for it. Well, Kenny, laugh all you want to, but your team didn't do any better this season. And last time I checked, we beat y'all to win the Super Bowl last year, so as far as the high ground goes, you're going to need to come back stronger next year to get that high ground back. I mean, you had it for a couple seasons over the Eagles, but between Eagles and Kansas City, that high ground's leaned toward the Eagles the past couple seasons. But as far as back to the story, Jake Elliott, oh my gosh, get rid of him. He's overstayed his welcome as kicker. I agree 100% on that one. It's really, and honestly, look, getting a kicker is one of the easiest things you can do. You can always draft a kicker in the 6th or 7th round, or always sign somebody off another team's practice squad. That's how we got Elliott in the first place. We got him off the Bengals practice squad, if I remember correctly. And, so we can always find another kicker easily. I mean, kickers, you don't really fit kickers in the 1st and 2nd round. You don't draft kickers with the number 1 pick. I'm sure Eagles can find somebody else that can at least kick more accurately Now, I know finding a consistent kicker isn't as easy as it sounds because, hey, even though kickers don't play a lot, it's a lot harder than it seems. Especially the pressure aspect, the mental aspect of being a kicker. You got to be able to kick through wind, snow, sunny weathers, rain, sleet, hail. I mean, it's not as easy as it sounds. So I understand maybe a little bit harder to find someone consistently, but it's not hard to find a replacement or at least look for one in the later rounds of the draft. I mean, come on. So I'm with you on that one. But the real biggest thing is you can't have Kevin Patullo come back. He's going to waste whatever chance this offense has left. And you got Mo commented, yeah, Jake hurt us this year a few times. He's been a damn good kicker for us. He's been really good. The past couple seasons, it's been iffy, though. Oh, yeah, last season he was struggling, but we gave him a pass because we won the Super Bowl. But this year, we weren't the same team we were last year. We're going out in the wild card round. It's a little more obvious, and it stands out more than it did last season. And store results comment, Jalen Phillips, number one priority. Offensive tackle Fred Johnson, number two, will be cheap backup when Lane goes down again next season. Brandon Mann, GOAT punter, will be cheap. On those ones, I'd say, yeah, Jalen Phillips, Fred Johnson, and Brandon Mann, definitely good choice to bring back. Because Brandon Mann kind of helped us out in a lot of cases, especially a lot of those close games we ended up winning. His punting did a key job in helping us out, too, and giving the defense enough room to work. Of course, Jalen Phillips came in. He fit really well with Fangio. We saw that first Monday night against the Packers. He went out there, and he played a key factor to us winning that game. And he was a key contributor all season. In my opinion, I'd keep Jordan over Jalen Carter. Unpopular opinion. Jordan is more focused on his body mentally. He doesn't do dumb stuff like spit on people. I will say this, though. Jordan Davis, now that he's in shape, like we saw some of his potential this year. Like we actually saw Jordan Davis flash his potential more because he was in shape. When he came out of college, he was still a little bit... he still kind of is on the heavy side, but he was a lot more on the heavy side. You didn't see his best then. But now that he's slimmed down, you saw him making plays he would have never made, like the blocked field goals in Week 3 against the Rams, particularly the kick return for a touchdown. You think Jordan Davis of his 2022, 23, or 24 would have made that play? Nah. But the thing that's iffy about that is because Jalen Carter's been more consistent throughout his 3 seasons than Jordan Davis throughout his 4, they're going to lean more toward Carter out of the 2. But really, it's one of those things. I'd have to look at the full list of free agency, and maybe that's an idea for another stream. Come on here, talk about free agency, who's staying, who's going, once I get a look at the whole list. But also, too, I would like to get some of my thoughts on the season out the way. Disappointing season, yes. This wasn't horrible by any... I wouldn't say this was a horrible season, even with the flaws I just discussed, but because we still won 11 games, and we still won the NFC East, but here's the thing. We didn't beat a lot of good teams. Really the best team we beat were the Buffalo Bills, and that was pretty much by luck, really. We got so lucky the Bills botched that 2-point conversion, and that we got that blocked extra point after the first touchdown, because if Buffalo didn't get that blocked extra point, we didn't block that extra point, it would have been 13-13, and they would have just kicked the extra point and gone for the win. So we got lucky on that one. But outside of that, we beat Dallas the first game. Dallas was below average. Then we had Week 2, we beat Kansas City, and Kansas City was a disappointment this season. So that one's to express. We had the Rams Week 3. Actually, yeah, that was actually a pretty good second half. I'll say that week. The Rams and the Bills were the 2 best wins of the season. I stand corrected. So it was the Bills game and the Rams game. But even the Rams game, I don't know. We kind of got lucky. That everything clicked in the second half. And then week 4, we beat the Buccaneers, but the Bucs were ultimately a mediocre team. And in that game, our offense was atrocious in the second half. I mean, we got lucky. Our defense really came on strong in that one. And then week 5, we lost to the Broncos. Fourth quarter, the offense couldn't move. The defense finally got burnt out. I know there was a bad call, but we were up 17-0. We shouldn't have been in that situation where a bad call played a role in the outcome of that game. Then week 6, we get absolutely embarrassed by the Giants, which made no sense. I understand they were still kind of healthy offense at the time. Scatterboo had a really good game, but still. To not even be able to at least... I could see if it were a high-scoring game, if the offense would have played good and it just would have came down to the wire, I could just say, okay, divisional game, both offenses played hard. Sometimes upsets happen, but to get blown out by the Giants made absolutely no sense at all. None. And then we come back, we beat the Vikings. Vikings were just mediocre teams, stuck with Carson Wentz as their starter for a revenge game there. We did beat the Giants in the rematch, but let's be honest, Giants were a trash team. And the source says, couple more years we need to keep Cooper and Quinyon. Yeah, Cooper and Quinyon definitely. I mean, there's so much talent on this roster. There's so much talent. You could just name anybody. Oh yeah, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. You definitely need to keep those two guys for sure. Those guys, if they've been lights out for us through both seasons, especially last year in that Super Bowl run. And then we had the bye week. We beat the Packers and the Lions back to back. In games where our defense pretty much won those games, our offense sucked. And let's be honest, the Lions and Packers were at best average to above average teams. Packers were kind of above average, and the Lions were just mediocre this year. So those weren't great wins. We lost the rematch to the Cowboys because our offense just stopped playing at halftime, and our defense got burnt out in the second half. Then we got embarrassed by the Bears, who were the best team we played alongside the Rams and Bills. Then the Chargers, the offense, if Jalen Hurts would have just played better, we could have won that game. The point is, so far through all those teams I listed, you notice most of the teams we beat were mediocre or bad teams, and most of the teams we lost to were good teams. Except the Giants and Cowboys, but the Broncos lost to them. We lost to the 49ers in the playoffs. We lost to the Chargers and the Bears, who actually are pretty solid teams. I mean, Chargers not so much in the playoffs, but they were good enough in the regular season. We couldn't beat them, but... And back, Mo says, maybe we should have played our starters against Washington. Would have played the Packers, who we've owned as of recent. And that's another point, too, to the dumb decision-making the Eagles have made. When we had a chance at the number 2 seed, so we beat the Raiders, we beat Washington the first time. Okay, easy games, but we'll take the wins. Then Buffalo, we won, we kind of got lucky. Well, Chicago struggled against Detroit. They didn't really play their guys. We could have played our guys, beat Washington at least, and been the number 2 seed against the Packers. And that would have been a much more favorable matchup because the Packers, once they lost Micah Parsons, they completely fell off a cliff, figuratively, when they lost Parsons. They just were not the same team. They started losing games. They fell to the 7th seed. We could have had that matchup. But ultimately, guess what? We didn't. We sat our starters and we ended up losing. And we got the 3 seed, and we had to play the 49ers, who were the better team than the Packers, and ultimately the better team than we were. So I can also blame Sirianni for that one too. And that, oh my gosh. And that, see, he said Saquon Barkley up the middle every 3 out of 4 plays. Yeah, exactly. Pretty much. Pretty much. Yeah, and that's another thing. The offense was just, oh my god. And that's another thing too, along with just being absolutely terrible. The play calling part of that thing was Saquon. I noticed something with Saquon. When they lined him up under center, opposed to lining him up under under shotgun, which they lean toward doing so with shotgun most of the time, guess what happened? Ultimately, they couldn't run the ball with Saquon in shotgun. When they lined him up under center, he did pretty solid, but lining him up under center just, yeah, he was much better there, but they kept lining him up in the opposite way under shotgun. And he'd usually get stuffed for like 2 yard runs in that direction. And another point too, yeah, we Tank Bigsby too. We had Tank Bigsby on the roster, but ultimately we didn't utilize him that much. It's like, god damn, we had Tank Bigsby on the roster, and we barely used him. And when we did use him, guess what? He actually was pretty solid. Tank Bigsby, remember the Giants game, the rematch, we ran with both Saquon and Tank. Ultimately, Tank ended up having 100 plus yards as long with Saquon. So that showed that Tank Bigsby, when given the ball, was good, but we barely utilized him. Now, I understand you got Saquon on a contract. You didn't really want a contract dispute with Saquon and Tank Bigsby at the end of the season, but because Saquon wasn't producing the same, you ultimately ended up wasting away the season. And that's ultimately what they did. They wasted away the season. And they wasted Tank Bigsby. Now I bet you Bigsby's going to look at the free agent market and try to, well, is he a free agent this year? I have to check. But if he is, he's going to look at the free agent market and try to go somewhere else where he'll actually be utilized more. Do you really think Tank Bigsby will want to stay with the Eagles? Especially if the Eagles are like, hey, let's go, like, hey, let's keep Kevin Patullo around. You think Tank Bigsy's going to say, oh, I would love to come back to that? No, absolutely not. So, oh yeah, so I could see him moving on. So we wasted a whole season of Tank Bigsby. God damn. Arku, if you're looking for something to love, I'd say focus a little more on your Thunder because they're fresh off a championship while the Cowboys have had the second straight season they missed the playoffs. It's not exactly the greatest. It's not exactly looking like sunshine and rainbows over down in Big D now, is it? And it's been, what, 30 years since y'all made a Super Bowl? It was Super Bowl 30, and now it's actually Super Bowl 60 in about a little under a month? Like, yeah. I think obviously the Thunder are trending in a much more upward direction as far as your sports teams are, Koo. And yeah, absolutely, they did. And while we're still in the subject of Kenneth Gainwell, shout out to Kenneth Gainwell because he actually had a good year in Pittsburgh, and it looks like he found his fit. And best of luck to Kenneth Gainwell tonight against the Texans. Yeah, and I do agree. You absolutely got to go with the people. Feature the people that's working. It was working with, and it was working with him. It was. When Tank Bigsby got the ball, but they didn't utilize Bigsby enough. To where it could have actually made a difference and potentially changed the outcome of the game. They just kind of like, yeah. I mean, so now for the Eagles, after a disappointing season where they mostly beat mediocre and bad teams, except for the Rams and Bills, it's off-season time. Now, I'll say this. The past decade of Eagles football, 2016 to 2025, as a whole, it's been the best decade in Eagles franchise history of the Super Bowl era because we've had 3 Super Bowl appearances and a Super Bowl win in that stretch. But we also had a disappointing season this year where we should have done better. We should have done better. So, I mean, really, there's not much else to say at the moment except I hope to hear the news that Kevin Patullo is going to get fired and that they're going to look for a new offensive coordinator. I seriously hope so in the coming days that it happens. I mean, please do so while we still have our talent here, while we still have a shot at another run. Put a competent mind in charge of play calling. Wow, we still have good talent on both sides of the ball. We still have Vic Fangio here. We still got a ton of our talent on defense. We still got good talent on offense. Get somebody new in charge of play calling and give this team a shot at another Super Bowl before it's too late. Before we end up becoming a what could have been team that won a Super Bowl but probably should have had a shot at a second or third. So let's do that. Please make those changes before it's too late. We still got a good we still got a good roster. They got a lot of talent there, but we could do better than what we did this year for sure. I mean, less talented teams would have done worse with the talent we had. So they got to make that change. I mean, there's really not much else I'm going to say except this was just kind of, I mean, I would give it a C-level season because we should have done better with the roster we had. So I'll leave it at that for now. We'll just see what happens in the coming days. Maybe we'll talk about it a little bit more. But for now, Mo, Arcus, Star Wars, Amy, who came in the chat earlier, thanks for coming in. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more. Tomorrow I'll be live at noon Eastern Standard Time for the 3-Point Blitz, where I'll discuss the NFL playoffs as a whole more in depth. I'll also talk about some of the other games as well and preview the divisional round matchups. If you're an NBA fan, I'll talk a little bit about the NBA. Particularly, there was a big trade that happened in that league last week that I'm going to discuss a little bit. So stay tuned for that. All I'm hearing about is the Cowboys will win another chip. Oh my God. Not anytime soon. Unless something dramatically changes, it doesn't look like it. But yeah, guys, thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed. Have a great night. I'll be back tomorrow at noon for the 3-Point Blitz. Like I said, talk the NFL wildcard, divisional round, NBA Trae Young trade coming tomorrow at noon. So have a great night, guys. Peace.